We now welcome on the Second Swing Thoughts podcast, Mr. Larry Bobka. Some call him Larry Legend, master club fitter and club designer. Has been in the golf equipment space for a long time. I won't say the number of years.
44.
44. Okay, he's going to say the number of
I'm going
years.
to say 44.
You have some new irons.
I do.
Here in 2025.
I
So, for those who don't know, Larry designed, you've designed clubs forever, but most recently you've released putters and a set of irons in the last few years under the Handmade Sticks umbrella. Now you got a new set of irons to talk about. So these are the Bobka Proto Irons.
Correct.
A player's kind of shallow cavity type iron. I guess, where did this come from? What was the inspiration here with these?
Well, the LB ones were pretty much just straight muscle back blades. So in the world of golf these days, you don't have that many players playing muscle back blade. Well, except for the number one player in the world and the guy that won FedEx yesterday. So blades are still around in good players' hands. But, players like to see something that maybe is a little bit larger profile, a little bit more forgiving. It's going to launch a little higher in the air.
Yeah. So with these, obviously that was part of the build, was maybe, expanding it to new golfers that maybe didn't want to play a muscle back blade.
Correct.
So is there when you are designing an iron, the shape, the sizing, everything like that, are you looking at maybe a club that you're fitting that's maybe prominently on the market that you're trying to kind of emulate, or is this something that you purely just throw something on there that comes to your mind? You're not really taking inspiration from another club. Like, how does it go for you?
Well, you could always say, hey, we're just, this is from a scratch design. Well, it's an iron, right?
Right.
There's a lot of irons that look like a lot of other irons through the years. What I like to do is I'd like to get a golf club, first of all, that, from a flight standpoint, gets what we need. Especially now these days with TrackMan, it's very easy to do a prototype, put a shaft in it, hit it, and see what kind of flight you get. So was I trying to get flight similar maybe to ZX7, Ping Blueprint, Titleist T, kind of in between 100 and 150. But that sort of profile, that larger profile that flies up in the air, but yet still when you put it down at address, it doesn't look like, it doesn't look like, I like to call them user-friendly golf clubs.
Right.
And I think the other thing that hurts a little bit these days, and no disrespect to any other manufacturers, I think lofts have gotten a little crazy in irons. They've gotten very strong. And I think it's good to have a set of irons that is a player's type club. It's going to fly up in the air, but it's also going to spin, because spin is control. Mm-hmm. So that's where I kind of looked at. I kind of looked at those irons and said, hey, what can I do from my standpoint? What kind of look do I want? What kind of feel, sound, and kind of, hey, because that's what we're selling. I mean, that's, hey, I fit that every day, ZX7s and ZX7s and blueprints and, the Titleist T100s and, hey, let's make a golf club similar to that under the Handmade Sticks, my brand, and bring out a club, limited release and see what people think. And, I originally put Proto on there for the first set of clubs, and I'm like, well, I kind of like Proto. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah, it's a Proto. Yeah, I mean, at one time it was a Proto, so that's kind of where.
Right.
So you talked about the lofts.
Yep.
The LB1s, the previous iron that you designed, or the muscle back blade. I believe the 7 iron was 36 degrees with that in the standard.
36.
Is it the case with
these? This is 35.
35. Okay.
35, and it's also because it's a forged 1020 carbon steel, or 1025, excuse me.
Yeah.
It's very bendable. So if you want to bend them back to traditional lofts, you can. If you want to bend them even a degree stronger, that you can too. Match up with a 34 degree 7 iron. So it really fits in there where I figured 35 was a good I like that number because you can either play it at 35, you can go a little weaker, or you can go a little stronger.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm, you know, I look at it and, you know, and I'm kind of prototyping some other stuff, and I hit him the other day, and, you know, you're like, you know, these lofts are getting so strong that if you don't have any speed and you don't have any spin, you can't keep the ball in the air.
Right, which is, I know that's a big component. It seems like every iron fitting that, you know, you or any of our fitters do, that's one of the first pieces of conversation is, you know, how is identifying how high the person hits the ball with their current irons.
Right.
And then when it comes to getting something new, it becomes about the loft and how much, you know, because, you know, this is a 35-degree 7 iron, which 35 degrees today is kind of a, you know, radically high amount of loft today.
correct.
But, you know, you talk about 10, 15 years ago, that was a pretty standard number.
Yeah, it was radically low.
Right. Yeah. I guess that's, yeah.
Yeah, and it just, you know, you watch players and you have, you know, when I do the prototype sets, I put them together, I hit them, I have other people hit them, and, you know, we take them in the bay versus the clubs that I kind of was inspired by to.
Sure.
And you sit there and you see the performance, and it's like, well, hey, this is launching a little higher and spinning a little higher, you know, and everybody looks at me and go, oh, what are you going to change? I'm like, nothing. That's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, I want a golf club that people can hit. I mean, even, you know, I look at my own golf game, okay? You know, 65 years old now. Back's not the best. But, you know, you start hitting the ball shorter. And here's the issue. If you start hitting the ball shorter with your driver, then everything kind of backs up. Okay, well, if I'm only driving at 230 or 240, I don't need a 7-iron that goes 180 yards.
Right.
Because what do I put in between my 7-iron and my driver? You know?
Right.
I don't
not much.
not much.
Yeah.
You know, there's only 50 or 60 yards there to do it, and then I got to put a whole bunch of stuff behind it. So I just kind of look at it as like, hey, you know, put a nice set of clubs in your bag, hit your driver, and have those specific distances that you're going to hit. And that's what matters, you know. And unfortunately, golf's a game of ego, that everybody wants to stand there and nobody wants to stand on the tee box. That if you're hitting an 8-iron and I got to hit 7 or 6, that bothers a lot of people.
Right. So that's partly why, you know, it seems like lofts have shifted so much stronger today. It's a distance game for a lot of the manufacturers. But so when it comes to the design of the club head, is there anything particular features wise that you are in particularly proud of, or you like the best? Like, what are you, like, call out something that's kind of unique there that maybe the viewers won't know or will see?
I like that it's got a fairly straight leading edge.
Okay.
That pretty much parallels the bottom score line. I like that look. When you look at that, when you also turn it over this way, you look at the sole, and the sole looks very good. The sole looks parallel to the leading edge.
Sure.
You know, there's a little pull away. There's a little bit of material taken out of the heel.
Okay. Yep.
But otherwise, you know, it's a good performing sole. I put a little more bounce on these than the LB1s had, just to make it a little bit easier, and just in case somebody wants to bend these a little bit stronger.
Got it.
You know, the top line to me is a little bit, you know, it's a little bit on the thicker side. But again, you know, we're trying to make a very stable golf club.
Yep.
You know, even though, you know, in the world of MOI, this is not going to be the highest golf club in the world, but it's a little bit more stable. It's got a lot of weight down low, a real chance for the ball to launch up in the air very easily. And it just, you know, I just, you know, my frustration sometimes when I'm in the fitting bay is working with customers, and, you know, hey, they're like my age or getting to be my age, and they were good players, and now the speed's starting to fall off, the spin's starting to fall off. And it's like, hey, you know, I need a golf club that goes in the air.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I was thinking about when I had these, was just to go out and go, okay, hey, I know how the LB1s fly. Let's make a golf club that flies a little higher. You know, forged cavity backs, you got to say, are hot right now. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
between
Oh, yeah.
ZX and TaylorMade's cavity back and every. So why not come out with a club that looks very modern, where LB1 was a golf club that looked very traditional.
Yeah, that's a good way to put and kind of separate the two, where it seemed like,
Right.
And again, I think I
mean, we went from the 1960s to the 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, but I do think there's in a really cool way you still incorporated a similar overall shape to the two.
Yeah.
Just in terms like at a dress, I think the shape itself is still pretty similar, but obviously there's the different sizing of the club head and stuff. So I guess in sort of wrapping up here too, just we've talked about features, where the iron came from, and you've hinted a little bit too at kind of the types of players that might benefit the most. But I guess if you were to kind of summarize the golfers that the Bobka Proto Irons are best suited for, being the person that actually designed them, what would you say?
Probably, I would like to say scratch to aspiring players.
Okay.
Okay, and aspiring players to me can be a 5 handicap trying to become a 0.
Sure.
A 10 trying to be a 5, a 15 to trying to be a 10. Anybody that's looking for an iron that's got more consistent ball flight, that's going to spin up in the air, that they can control their distance. Because what do we spend all day long in a bay? What have I spent my entire career doing? Is trying to help people get the left to right dispersion down and the front to back dispersion down. Okay. That's why I made this golf club, to help people do that. And if I can start doing that, and if I can chip and putt, I can play pretty darn good golf, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because ultimately at the end of the day, your drive set it up, your iron play gets you on the green, and then the putter's got to do the work.
Right.
But you want to be consistent. I mean, the one thing that has killed me through the years, and having worked for Titleist and Wilson and hit a lot of golf clubs in my own game, especially the ball changed in 2000
right.
to spin away from the golf ball, trying to find irons that flight well. Okay. I don't care if they're the fanciest, the best. That's why so many people walk in the bay and go, "Hey, I want to come in and get these," and all of a sudden they walk out the door with something else, and they're like, "Oh man, these are great.
Right.
I didn't even think about these." Well, yeah, but you didn't know your character. You don't know your launch conditions.
Yeah, you don't have any numbers or
you don't
any
know
way
what
to,
you don't. You don't know what you don't know. So
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's just an iron. It's just another iron in the family of my designs to just be out there, look at it, and say, hey, very traditional golf club. Here's a more modern club. This one looks easier to hit. This one is.
Yeah.
The new one is easier to hit.
Yeah, that's. I'm personally intrigued. I have a set of the LB1s.
Yep.
I've enjoyed hitting those, and so I'm just personally intrigued to give these a run myself, just to see, see the flight, the consistency, the feel, everything for myself too.
Well, and it's interesting because I kind of have a combo set. I have those in my mid irons, and I still have LB1s in my short irons.
I was going to ask, yeah.
So the world, and there's so many combo, you look at so many bags now. I mean, look at Tommy Fleetwood's bag yesterday.
Right.
Driver, mini driver, 5 wood, 9 wood, 5 iron through 4 wedges.
Yep.
I mean, talk about the modern setup of golf clubs, other than he's got, his 5 iron through 9
He's got
iron.
muscleback blades.
Or blades, or
Yep.
muscleback blades. But you look at Scotty Scheffler's, same way. But then the other side, okay, we got the wedges there, but what do we do at the top end? Where do we get the flight at the top end?
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun to play around with that. So to me, throwing a half set, full set, to me, I design these so you could just buy the full set. The flight on the short irons is not too high. It's very controlled. It's very good. But, the middle irons are extremely easy to hit.
Nice.
Get up in the air. And so, like I said, and some of this stuff, I do this for myself too. Because,
yeah.
You
said that before. That's the best part.
Because,
it's like, I need some irons for myself.
Well, but you also want, hey, I play at Chaska every week with some good players, and get a bunch of fittings from the players that play in our league at Chaska, and you see them on the golf course, you see them warming up on the range, and you sit there and you watch them, and it's like, man, you could be so much better with better ball flight.
Yep.
People don't realize how high tour players hit the golf ball. Get people that walk in the bay and they hit it low, and I've had some people comment to me on the LB1s. These are great, but geez, by the time I get to the 6-iron, the flight starts going. Well, yeah, it's not an easy golf club to hit.
Right.
It wasn't
You
designed.
need a little bit of speed to hit those ones.
Yeah, it wasn't designed that way. And that's why I think the perfect set is kind of a blended set of golf clubs.
Right.
Which you can blend these, but maybe down the road we have a blended set of golf clubs.
Maybe that's something that's in the works there in the background.
Maybe. You just don't know. But these days it's so different because, your irons. It's like yesterday, who won the U.S. Becky Morgan, who won the U.S. Women's Senior Open. Okay, she had 6 woods, 4 wedges, 3 irons, and a putter.
Yeah, I mean that's a modern makeup.
That is a modern makeup for a moderate speed player.
Yeah,
and it's gonna.
Fred Couples is approaching that.
Yeah, you hate to say as somebody who's designed irons forever that irons are kind of going away, but they sort of are. They sort of have to be. You have to look at it as a designer and sit back and go, hey, what do I really need to make for somebody?
Yeah. So that's where these were born, was making this for just for more of the masses a little bit, but still with your design principles in there.
Right, and aspiring players, it doesn't have a ton of offset. It's still, it's got a little bit of offset, but you put it down and you're not going to feel like it's ugly.
Right, awesome. Well, golfers can get a look for themselves and the Bobka Proto Irons out on secondswing.com. If you have any questions, of course, you can let us know. You can contact Larry. He'll answer those questions for you. But the Bobka Proto Irons, go check them out. Designed by our guy, Larry. And few people on the planet have more experience designing golf clubs, building golf clubs for elite golfers than Larry does. So, Larry, thank you for joining. Some great insight into your new irons.
Always glad to be here.